You understand the minimalist playbook. You've canceled the extra services, passed on the expensive coffee runs, and followed every piece of financial advice you've heard. Yet that pressure in your chest never fully disappears. Then you open social media and see people around your age relaxing in Cabo or pulling away in leased BMWs, and your first thought is that they must have some kind of advantage, some secret access to a different financial world. But every now and then, especially late at night, another thought creeps in. The question isn't just about cutting costs anymore. It's about making the cash already sitting there become something larger, something that can multiply and keep moving even when you're not paying attention. So tonight, like countless Friday evenings before, you check the account. Why does saving feel so much like winning? The alert appears 11 minutes after you leave the banking app. A $250 transfer has quietly moved from your checking account into savings. It's automatic. The same routine you've followed every Friday since the start of the year. You barely react to the notification now. The small badge on your Chase app appears, and your body relaxes for a second. A private feeling of relief. You handled it. You're doing what responsible people do. Over time, this habit has become part of who you are. Your paycheck arrives through direct deposit at 7:15 a.m., leaving you with $2,918 after taxes. By 7:24, the transfer has already disappeared from your spending account. The money is removed before you have the chance to rethink the decision. Your roommate Marcus receives his paycheck on the same day, yet he still spends Friday evenings covering drinks at the neighborhood bar, a few streets away. From your side of the table, you watch him with the beer you bought earlier, and a quiet sense of confidence settles over you. He'll probably wake up Saturday feeling awful and seeing a lower balance. You'll wake up with the same account amount as before, except now it's slightly larger, at least on paper. And that's where the story gets uncomfortable. No one really explains this part. Your savings balance does increase every couple of weeks. It climbs slowly, consistently, and your mind interprets that movement as evidence. Evidence that you're winning. Evidence that your system is effective. You've seen plenty of friends trapped in endless paycheck cycles. You've watched Marcus have his card rejected at a supermarket recently, then shrug and swipe another one like nothing happened. Compared with that, your careful $250 routine starts to feel less like a financial tactic and more like a character trait. You're not trying to look wealthy. You don't have a flashy lease or borrowed money pretending to be a lifestyle. You simply have a Chase savings account and a process that runs quietly in the background. Some evenings, you even feel a little satisfaction while scrolling through Instagram. Your colleague Eliana shared a story recently from a company trip to Cabo, tagged a resort, and wrote about finally taking time to recharge. Maybe she truly deserved it. Still, you remember the thought that crossed your mind. I could take a trip like that whenever I chose. I'm the one making the careful decisions. You didn't reserve the getaway. You didn't feel the need to show anyone anything. That $250 transfer felt like enough proof. But here's the part you never do during this whole process. You never tap into the account information. You never move down the page to the place where the annual percentage yield is listed. You avoid asking what that figure really means, because that question forces you to calculate. And calculations have a way of uncovering answers you might rather leave alone. So instead, you simply watch the balance rise. $6,900 appears, then $7,100, and the steady increase becomes your proof that everything is working. It isn't because you're reckless. In fact, it's because you've been trying so hard to be responsible. You set up automatic transfers. You left the money untouched. You allowed it to remain exactly where you believed. Financially disciplined people keep their savings. No one explained that letting money sit and making money grow are two completely different things. A balance can move upward every single week and still be losing the race in the ways that actually count. You would have discovered the truth eventually. You just never imagined it would come from a tiny percentage figure you had ignored for 10 months, hidden beneath your account balance, waiting for the day you finally paid attention. The rule of 72 makes that moment impossible to ignore. You're parked outside the Target on Ben White Boulevard, waiting for a curbside pickup that is running 14 minutes behind schedule. With nothing else demanding your attention, you grab your phone. This time, you don't just glance at the alert. You open the full account page. You pass the balance. You pass the transaction list. Then you reach the line you've skipped roughly 900 times before. Annual percentage yield, 0.7%. The number looks familiar. You've noticed it before. You just never stop to challenge it. Your coworker Nina sent you a message a few days ago with a screenshot of her own savings account at an online bank called Northstar, joking that it was earning around 4.3%. You gave it a quick look, replied that it was nice, and moved on with your day. You didn't calculate anything then. You calculate it now, sitting in that parking space with the engine turned off and the air conditioner slowly losing power. You open the calculator on your phone and enter the numbers almost casually. 72 divided by 0.7 equals about 103. You stare at the result, almost expecting the screen to change if you wait. It doesn't. 103 years. That's the amount of time it would take for your $7,100 savings to become $14,200 while staying exactly where it is and behaving exactly the way you've been praising it for behaving. You won't be around for that moment. Your children won't either. Someone far down your family line who eventually receives your Chase account could see it happen. You had no idea this calculation had a name until right now. It does. It's called the Rule of 72, and once you understand it, the simplicity is almost frustrating. Take the number 72, divide it by the actual return your money earns. The result tells you approximately how many years are needed for your money to double. No complex spreadsheet, no financial expert required. Just a simple calculation you could make while waiting in line at H-E-B. Once you understand the equation, your mind begins using it in places you never noticed before. That's the disturbing realization. Suddenly, every percentage feels like it is demanding an explanation. Nina's 4.3% account, for instance. 72 divided by 4.3 comes out to around 17 years. It is not overnight wealth, but it is something that can happen within the span of a person's life. A result you could realistically see unfold. You picture her opening that account on an average afternoon, not because she spent endless nights mastering finance, not because she discovered some hidden formula, but because she caught a number somewhere and decided it was worth investigating. You never made that choice. That is the thought that stays with you as you sit there in the parking lot, your food getting colder while a stranger's vehicle sits nearby. For 10 months, you have opened the account, looked at the figure, and left without ever asking what was silently changing behind the screen. You assumed automatic meant optimized. You assumed caution meant the work was complete. The store employee taps on your window, holding your order with the expression of someone who has repeated this routine countless times. You take the bag, say thanks, set it next to you, and almost forget it exists. Your attention is somewhere far away. You are still doing the math. Because if a 0.7% return takes longer than you may have available, while a 4.3% return can grow money in roughly 17 years, then what happens when the return goes higher? What happens if the answer is not another ordinary savings account? You still do not know. But now you can recognize the gap. There is a measurable difference between the account you accepted and the one you could have pursued. It is no longer just a vague suspicion. It has a percentage connected to it, a formula that reveals it, something concrete enough to understand. You put the car into reverse, leaving the food sitting beside you, and your thoughts drift toward every other situation where that equation might matter. Savings accounts versus S&P 500 results. The store bag remains untouched on your kitchen counter for 4 days before you finally eat anything from it. But that is not the important part. What follows you is the calculation repeating every time you notice a balance. Your workplace retirement screen, your payment app, even the small interest charge appearing on your student loan statement. Every number now carries a rate. Every rate has a doubling timeline. It is Wednesday afternoon. You are at your desk with a microwave burrito slowly cooling a few feet away. Then your phone buzzes. It is Jordan. You have known him since your sophomore year at UT. He works in back-end engineering for a healthcare startup downtown. He makes about $11,000 more than you every year, a difference you never thought much about until this message appears. He sends a screenshot without any context. It is his Fidelity app displaying a Roth IRA balance of $14,200. The majority is invested in something called VTI. You respond, "Nice. What kind of return are you getting on that?" You keep the question relaxed, as if you are asking about any ordinary detail. He replies that the S&P 500 has historically delivered returns close to 11% per year across many decades. Not in a perfectly steady climb. Some years drop sharply, others rise dramatically, but over long periods of time, that's the figure everyone repeats when they discuss long-term market growth. You don't even need to grab a calculator because the answer begins taking shape before his message has fully sunk in. 72 divided by 10 equals roughly 7.2. Put another way, if that historical average kept going, the money sitting in that account could potentially double in around 7 years. Not decades, not 103 years. 7. You sit there staring at the screen for a few seconds. Your lunch remains untouched. Something changes inside you, the same uneasy feeling that arrives when you realize you've been playing by a set of rules nobody ever explained. Marcus isn't smarter than you. He doesn't have a hidden advantage or a higher income. He simply opened an account you never thought about, put his money somewhere unfamiliar, and let time do the work your savings account was never built to accomplish. Almost without thinking, you open your own banking app at your desk. Chase Savings, $7,100, earning 0.7% APY. Then you open another browser tab and type in Fidelity. You don't create an account yet. You just look over the page, like you're standing outside a doorway and wondering if you're actually allowed to walk through. Because the reality is, nobody ever explained this clearly to you. A savings account and an index fund aren't merely two versions of the same product. One exists to hold your money and keep it available. The other allows your money the possibility of joining the growth of the market. It means owning pieces of thousands of companies at the same time, moving with the larger economy instead of slowly falling behind while earning small monthly returns. You replay the last 10 months in your mind. 18 transfers, $250 each time, $4,500 altogether. You had been disciplined, cautious, and responsible, only to discover that where you placed the money mattered more than the act of saving itself. Saving wasn't the problem. Putting it in the wrong place was. Marcus sends another message, joking that he'll reach a home down payment before you. You laugh at your desk, honestly. Not because he's making fun of you, but because the math actually supports the joke. 7 years compared with 900 years. That's not a gap you close by simply adding more hours to your workday. It means choosing an entirely different place for your money to grow. You close the Fidelity page for the moment, not because you've dismissed the idea, but because you don't want to rush into something during a lunch break without understanding what you're buying, what dangers are involved, or how expensive waiting might become. At the same time, inflation continues pushing forward. The rent renewal email arrives on a Thursday morning. The subject line says, "Your lease renewal options," and you pause briefly because you already know the news probably won't be good. Even so, you open it. $1,950 per month, up from $1,800. A $150 increase for the exact same 700-square-foot one-bedroom near South Lamar where you've lived for 3 years. The same faded water stain spreading across the bathroom ceiling. The same sluggish elevator ride. The building itself hasn't changed. Only the figure staring back at you from the statement has. You start calculating before you even realize it. Numbers have become impossible to ignore. Ever since the parking area. Ever since Marcus's screenshot. $130 turning into roughly $1,620 over 12 months. Is money that disappears before it ever touches your Chase account. You look back at those $250 transfers you were so proud of making, then realize your landlord just erased the equivalent of almost 7 of them with one notification. Later that day, you're walking through the H-E-B on Slaughter Lane when the feeling hits again. This time it is smaller, but somehow it cuts deeper. A rotisserie chicken that once cost $7.49 now scans at $9.29. You almost question the cashier, a tired older man named Evan, who looks like he has answered the same frustration countless times already. Instead, you simply pay, grab the bag, and step outside into the afternoon heat. This is when the lesson finally lands. You're standing beside your cart in a parking lot for the second time this month, holding groceries instead of waiting for a curbside pickup. The balance in your savings account was never fighting only against itself. It was fighting against everything around you. Rent climbing higher, food prices creeping upward, and everyday expenses quietly becoming heavier while your money rested there earning 0.7% and pretending that was growth. You take out your phone beside the cart return and calculate it again. But this time, the equation points somewhere else. Inflation has been hovering near 4.3% this year, the statistic you vaguely remember seeing in an article. 72 divided by 4.3, about 16.7 years. That is the amount of time it takes for today's dollar to lose roughly half its purchasing power. The money is not vanishing. It is simply buying less without making a sound. The same chicken sitting in your kitchen today could cost around $18 in the future. Your cash is slowly drifting toward. You think about your Chase account again, the one that would take around 103 years to double, and a different realization settles in. Technically, it grows. Practically, it barely matters. Inflation cuts into your purchasing power every couple of decades, while your savings crawls toward doubling over a lifetime. You are not remaining where you started. You are slipping backward slowly enough that it feels invisible. Your mind goes to Nina's 4.3% online savings account. It is close to matching inflation, but it is not truly creating distance. Then you remember Marcus's 11% index fund, actually moving ahead, actually building ground. Nobody ever told you there was a race happening. Somewhere beyond both of those examples, you imagine a future where this calculation no longer scares you. A Aurelia tank watch sitting on your wrist, purchased completely with cash. No loans, no payments, because the money supporting it had grown faster than the rising costs surrounding you. You are still a long way from that finish line. But something is different now. For the first time, you can actually see the road that links where you are today to the future you want. You load the groceries into the back of your car, the chicken already cooling in its plastic container, and before you even leave the parking lot, another calculation begins forming in your mind. This one is not about returns anymore. It is about what it costs to do nothing. The gap between starting at 26 and delaying until 36 suddenly feels far more tangible. That same week, an email about your 401k choices arrives while the grocery trip is still fresh in your thoughts. Open enrollment ends Friday, and normally you would have ignored it after glancing at the subject line. This time, you click. You log into the benefits portal, scroll farther than you ever have, and stop when you reach the section describing the company match. A 4.3% dollar-for-dollar match. Free money being added on top of your savings. Money that has been quietly slipping away since your first company paycheck. Later that afternoon, an information session takes place in a third-floor conference room. Jason's Deli sandwiches sit across the table. A human resources representative named Tessa walks everyone through the presentation, while most people around you appear only slightly interested. You are listening closely. She explains the 2026 contribution limits. Employees under 50 can contribute as much as $24,500 to a 401k throughout the year, while a Roth account offers another $7,500 maximum. You do not need to hit those numbers today. You just need to take the first step. Sitting next to you is Owen from Accounts Payable, pulling the crust apart from a turkey sandwich. He is 34 and has been with the company almost as long as you have held your current position. During the Q&A, he leans over and says with an uneasy laugh, "I only opened my Roth this year. I really wish someone had encouraged me to do it when I was 26. He laughs about it, but you cannot. You are 26, turning 27 in November, and your thoughts immediately return to the formula you have been carrying around recently. If you invest $350 every month into an S&P 500 fund, using the 11% average return Marcus mentioned, and leave it alone until you reach 65, the money has 38 years to compound. That gives it more than 5 full doubling periods when measured, using the old 7.2-year rule. Under the table, you quietly enter the figures into your Notes app. The result appears somewhere beyond $2.1 million. Then you run Owen's numbers. Not because you want to judge him, but because curiosity has replaced the anxiety you once felt when facing calculations like this. He begins 10 years later, while still targeting the same retirement age. To get close to your result, he would need to invest roughly $550 each month, instead of your $350. That is more than $250 extra during every contribution period. Even with that larger investment, his money only receives 28 years to grow, giving him fewer than 4 doubling cycles. The final amount comes out a little above $1 million, A larger contribution, a smaller outcome, not because Owen made some disastrous financial choice, but because time passed before he started, and no monthly deposit can fully recover those lost 10 years. You look over and see Owen already discussing something completely unrelated, maybe a baseball game, unaware that he has become a calculation playing out in your mind. He is not a warning sign. He is evidence of what the clock can change. He wasn't behind because he didn't care about what came next. He was missing a piece of information. The same thing happened to you 10 months before. You looked at a balance, saw a number, and believed that alone meant you were handling things correctly. But the equation never measures effort. It doesn't reward intentions. It only reacts to the moment the timer begins. Tessa remains at the front of the room, continuing her explanation of company benefits, but before she can move to the next slide, your phone is already out and the enrollment screen is waiting. You select 4.3% for your 401k contribution. That captures the full employer match. Anything above that will go toward the Roth IRA account you intend to open later tonight. You are not trying to hit the annual maximum right away. You are just making the first move, and somehow that one decision feels like the exact thing the future has been waiting for. Owen notices your phone and asks what has pulled your attention away. You tell him what happened. He pauses, then quietly says, almost under his breath, "Man, 26. The number sounds like a place he can see ahead of him, but not somewhere he can return to. You understand, because you can still picture yourself at that age. You can see it clearly in this moment, the Friday afternoon, the deli lunch, the workday you nearly skipped. The person who begins today is not smarter or more gifted than the person who waits. They simply give themselves more time. And for the first time, you understand what those lost years actually mean financially. You are in a conference room, calculating numbers nobody requested. You start wondering what a yearly return of $120,000 could actually make possible. It is a Tuesday night, 3 weeks into this new habit. Your 4.3% 401k contribution is now running, and your first Roth investment has been placed inside your Fidelity account. You still feel like you are figuring out the platform, and you are doing the familiar thing you do when sleep will not arrive, looking through houses you cannot afford yet. Zillow replaces social media. Even that small switch feels unusual. Eventually, one property catches your attention in Cape Coral, Florida. The listing shows a 3-bedroom home along a saltwater canal with a boat lift included. The price is $925,000. You have never been to Cape Coral. You probably couldn't point to it confidently on a map, but the pictures have that soft evening atmosphere that makes someone else's house feel like it could become your own future. You stay on the page longer than you expected. Then the math starts running in your head before you can shut it down. You know that a portfolio of $1.2 million invested in assets earning the same 11% return you keep seeing discussed could create roughly $120,000 per year. Not because you are selling pieces of it, not because you are emptying the account, simply because the investment growth itself keeps arriving, almost like a paycheck from a position you never need to clock into. You picture your Fidelity Roth balance right now, just a few $1,000s. You understand the gap between that amount and a $1 million portfolio is massive. You are not ignoring reality. Sitting on your couch at 1 a.m., you remind yourself to stay grounded. Still, you keep exploring the numbers because the question connected to that $925,000 home refuses to disappear. If you put 25% down and take on a mortgage with a 6.9% rate, using the number you recently noticed in a financial update but barely paid attention to at the time, what would that future actually demand? The mortgage estimate lands near $4,650 each month, a little above $55,000 over a year. Suddenly, that imagined $120,000 stream from investments is more than enough to handle the home payment. It would leave extra cash behind, while your regular salary stays completely untouched. You think back to Owen's comment during that deli lunch about the $2.1 million target your 28-year-old beginning is projected to reach by retirement age. Once you remove the mystery from that figure, the meaning becomes clearer. It is not some impossible jackpot or a made-up dream. It represents a waterfront house you might one day visit because you prepared for it, bought with capital that expanded over decades rather than money you simply exchanged from your labor. You continue browsing, though now The curiosity has taken over. Then you notice something more specific. A Porsche 911 Carrera in Guards Red, base configuration, priced around $18,500 after fees. You calculate that too, almost automatically. Not because owning the car is the goal, but because the comparison matters. A single year of that theoretical $120,000 investment income could purchase it outright. No financing, no 6.75% vehicle loan hanging over several years. There is a huge difference between buying something with returns generated while you slept and borrowing against the paycheck you still need to earn next month. It is the kind of purchase pattern you have watched people around your age follow, and if you admit it, it is close to the path you nearly took 3 years ago. A little after 1 a.m., you finally leave the Zillow page behind. Your phone fades to black in your hand. You are not wealthy. You are only a month into this experiment, but the way you viewed that property tonight feels unfamiliar compared with how you would have seen it before. It is not pure desire anymore. It feels more like understanding. The system is visible now. You can identify the dollars, the timeline, and the repeated growth periods required, instead of simply wondering how strangers eventually arrive there. You place the phone on the nightstand, screen down, and realize that for the first time in nearly 10 months, your Chase balance is not the thing occupying your thoughts. Still, you check the Chase app once more before sleeping. The balance reads $1,350.18. It remains there, unchanged and moving slowly, just as it was when this journey began. Yet the number looks different. You understand now that the money was never useless. It was simply sitting in a place where it had no opportunity to grow. Once you understand the formula, it appears everywhere. In every interest rate, every APY detail you used to ignore, every home listing that makes you stop and look again. Tomorrow, the automatic transfer arrives. It is still $250. It is still only one small action. Understanding the process does not magically make the contribution easier. But your attention has shifted. You will open another account, another calculator, another tool. And somewhere between this night and the day you reach retirement, you will need to find out exactly how many doubling cycles stand between where you are now and where you want to go.